You're listening to the Unmitigated podcast, the podcast that brings to light the hidden risks business owners and entrepreneurs take every day that may not be covered by traditional insurance. Here's your host, Van Carlson.
Hello, Van Carlson with the Unmitigated podcast. Thanks for taking the time today to watch this. Appreciate it. We have a special guest, Stephen Cilley with Ataraxis.
Ataraxis.
Why do I keep messing that up?
You'd rather be in the Adirondacks?
Oh, that's why.
That's why. It's probably
there's a subconscious to that.
It is. Yeah. That's a good place.
So what does that word mean?
Ataraxis? It actually means the absence of mental stress or anxiety.
Nice.
Yeah.
What, does it come from Latin?
No, it's actually an English word.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, everybody thinks it's like
that's
Latin.
That's the problem.
Or Greek.
I don't know English that well.
That's true. It's okay though. We always get through.
I get it close.
I know, as long as you're close.
No, I've known Steve for a long time. You guys probably hope you guys can fill that a little bit.
Yeah.
Steve's been a good friend of ours. And good benefit to a person to know when it comes to some of the things that you're doing, especially when it comes to business owners, right?
Right.
We're both in the business of help clients mitigate risk.
Right.
And so part of this podcast is really to bring advice to business owners and an education process and all that good stuff. So tell us a little bit about what you do and your company.
Yeah. So I'll start with Ataraxis. Ataraxis is it's an HR company that really focuses on how do we help clients do business better, help their employees better, do that. We use kind of a PEO chassis, a professional employer organization. For a lot of companies, you probably know PEOs. A lot of them do payroll. They'll do some benefits for you. They'll do maybe some HR, and they'll help you out, that kind of thing. I started Ataraxis. It wasn't from the HR. I'm definitely not an HR person. The HR department will tell you that all the time. But it's very important for business. And I actually came from the insurance and risk management side. So I had a claims company that was in 5 states, 75 employees, and I needed somebody to do the HR because I kept getting in trouble. Every state's a little bit different, and
100%.
We're in the Northwest, and Washington and Oregon and Idaho and Utah and Nevada is where we were, and they were all different. They all act differently. And so I wanted a company that would help us do those things or do them for. I really didn't want to employ anybody. And back then, about 15 years ago, I couldn't really find a PEO that would do all the work. I needed to have an on-site contact. I needed to have somebody that the PEO could instruct to do the work. And I always found that kind of repetitive and pointless.
Yeah.
So when not being able to find one that would do it, I ended up starting one just because I figured I couldn't be the only one with that problem.
Yeah. And you kind of educated me over the years on what you're doing too. And honestly, it's I don't know what I don't know, I guess. Right?
Yeah.
Who would be a good client of yours? I mean, what would that demographic look like?
For us, we're a little bit different. I mean, a lot of PEOs end up when then they hit 50 to 100 people, they leave the PEO because they need to have somebody do the work. When they're smaller, when a company's smaller, you've got front desk person or a receptionist or an office manager or somebody that can do the HR work when they're told to do it. For us, we've got companies that we work with up into the hundreds and even thousands of employees because we work differently. We're working in a way that we can really not only mitigate a lot of the risk associated with HR because we're doing all the HR work. You don't have to have somebody try to figure it out. We don't charge you to call us and ask a question. You're not getting a call center. You're getting the same people all the time that are dedicated to your business.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's nice. You've got a team that really integrates in with your business. And so, of our clients, most of them, very few, have any HR on staff. And the ones that they do are usually more of a recruiting or people, development.
And wouldn't you say that it's one thing to do if all your employees were housed in one state?
Right.
But when you start to go to these multiple states, that's when that department of HR gets much more complicated.
Much more complicated. I mean, the problem is that HR is a skill, definitely a skill. It's a profession, and it's expensive to hire those people, the ones that truly know.
That have experience.
And then you get into a place where you've got now you've got not only HR rules that are different and vastly different between states, you now started getting into tax issues and payroll issues and all those things that are vastly different between states, and there's always an overlap of payroll and HR. And so a lot of times payroll people become the HR people. It's hard to get one person to know everything.
Yeah, 100%.
And so once you have one person in there, you've got a high salary, and then you're still hiring attorneys and you're still hiring consultants and doing all those things, whereas we're coming in with a full team of people that you don't need to go elsewhere for.
One of the things you hear a lot of, and we talk about it quite regularly, is company culture.
Yeah.
Very key to, especially in this day and age of where we're at in business. How do you think a PEO affects a company culture?
I think it really depends on how a company interacts with their PEO. If you've got, and there's some great PEOs out there that do, smaller ones that work like we do, whereas they really try to get to know the client and integrate with them. And the employees, they get to know the PEO because they understand the relationship. But there's a lot of companies that have no idea, their employees have no idea that they're using a PEO. They never talk to them. They log into a piece of software, but if they have a problem, they've got somebody they've got to talk to at their company to then get with the PEO, or it feels more like a payroll company. Whereas, if you've got a great vendor partner in a PEO who integrates with your business and your employees are talking to them, then they can add a lot of value to the employee because the employee has a resource that they can go to. No employee likes to feel as if they have nowhere to go.
Right, exactly.
You were smaller, you remember this, because when I was smaller, I remember this. When the employee has to come to ask you a question, that's the worst thing to happen, right? Because you don't know what's going on with benefits, and you've got other stuff to do.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know what your PTO policy
everybody
is.
starts at that level, and then as you evolve, right?
Right.
Yeah, so would you also say that, is there a somebody within the company that specifically deals with the PEO, meaning, they coordinate between back and forth, so would you still have an HR person, let's say internally, that works with the PEO, or would you be able to act as if you guys are 100% the department of the HR?
Right. I would say it depends. Most PEOs, you're going to have someone who's got either the ability to take good instruction with a little bit of HR information, which is mostly like the nationals and those things are going to have somebody like that. You work with a company like ours, you don't need an HR person because you're not actually doing work. What we're doing is that a manager will actually call us and say, hey, I need to work through a situation with an employee. And they're talking to our HR people just like they're internal to them, and they're doing all the paperwork, they're getting anything processed for that manager. So I think it really just depends on what fits best for the company. So if a company has somebody that really, they want to keep them in HR, they want to do the HR, we can work with them as well. But it really just depends on what they're looking for. Most of the time what happens is that the resource that is missing is the one for the employees. Because the HR person or the manager can call the PEO, they're going to get instruction, they're going to go online, they're going to get some kind of information, and they can figure it out. The employees, when they don't have a resource, are the ones that the problem exists. Is that how do I get information?
And that spins up issues, obviously.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Would you say that when it comes to managers, one of the things that I heard about this past year because of our hiring that we did, was onboarding.
Right.
That process and the crossing the T's and dotting the I's. Do you, and then of course that's the first time the employees have an experience, or you organize or unorganized. You kind of can set the tone there, right?
Yep.
Because we did so much hiring this past year, onboarding, unbeknownst to me, started to become an issue.
Right.
And it's just because of all the systems and all the different departments they were being hired for. So how do you guys handle? Is it more of the same wash, rinse, and repeat, or is there differences of onboarding from different companies?
Yeah, so we work directly with the company to figure out what you want to do for onboarding. What I've always said is that somebody should have the best onboarding experience that they ever have. What does that mean? Well, for you, it's different than it is for me, than it is for someone else. Maybe you don't like to talk to people, and you just want to go through all the paperwork online and you don't have to talk to anybody. Well, if that's your best experience, then that's what I want to give to you. But if you want to talk to somebody, then I want to give you that experience as well. So we designed a process for our clients that it fits the person and we meet them where they are. And so if the client, we have some clients like, I want you to talk to every employee. Okay, great, we will talk to every employee. We'll do that for a while, and then we'll go back to the client and say, these certain employees don't want to talk to anybody. Like, they never call us back. But they get all their paperwork done, so they're doing everything they should. So we really want to make sure that we're giving the employee the experience they want and the client the experience that they want, because that's important. It was really interesting, I think it was beginning of 23, a study came out around employee onboarding, and it was in the 70 percentile of employees responded and said if their employee onboarding experience isn't at least average or better, they're looking for a new job within 2 weeks.
Yeah,
because that tells them how organized the company is.
First impressions.
First impression.
Yeah.
And so we always want to make sure that the employees are taken care of, so we really focus on onboarding, and we control onboarding. We don't just say, hey, client, use the system. We actually make sure everything gets taken care of, because it's not about a W-4 and an I-9 anymore. It's
the good old days.
The good old, yeah, exactly. It's about a whole lot of other stuff. It's about, do I know my benefits? Do I know my PTO policies? Do I know all the different things that I'm going to have access to or my employer is going to do? And those are the things that we do with the employee, because we know all of that. We did it for them.
And honestly, Steve, I mean, we've all seen, I mean, in our professional lifetime, a change.
Right.
Where those things are more important to the people coming out of college, let's say, in their 20s and early 30s, than it would have been for us, starting in their 20s and 30s, right? I mean,
they didn't care what we thought when we got hired for a job. We were lucky to have a job.
Yeah.
It's totally different now.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm always looking at it saying, we want to make sure we're doing something for the employee, not to the employee.
Oh, nice.
Because if you do something to the employee, they're not going to be very happy about it. So you want to make sure that
and
we're
you know,
helping
honestly,
them.
this is probably a healthier process.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
it helps create the culture you're looking for, and the retention you need, and because everybody you hire is an investment. I mean,
absolutely.
You know, there's an investment of time, of education, resources that you want to keep that person around as long as you can, and that makes that workable for everybody.
Yeah, completely.
So,
turnover is expensive.
Yeah,
more expensive than anybody wants to give it credit for.
You know, when it comes to HR, what would you say? Do you have a nightmare story you'd want to share?
Gosh.
To give it some, because here's the thing I would say. In my experience, dealing with clients all over the country, and I'm messing with my mic, so I better not do that. We are seeing a tick up. Employer liability practices, for example, where wrongful terminations, age discrimination, sexual harassment, hostile work environment.
Yep.
All of those things seem to me to be more frequent.
100%.
And states like we're in, predominantly in Idaho,
right,
are headquartered here. I'm seeing things come out of the commission that were maybe a handful of years would not have come out. Meaning, okay, now you can go ahead and sue your employer for this. Meaning that there was an investigation done, and it's really done for a protection of it's a form of a tort reform kind of deal where, you know, there's a second layer to the employee. If the employee feels like they've done wrong, they can go in front of the
it's the Human Rights Commission.
Human Rights Commission, yeah. And they can file a complaint there, and then from there they can, if the Human Rights Commission comes back and say, yeah, you have the ability to sue your employer now because we see there's some issues here,
and they couldn't resolve it.
Right.
I mean, that is what's really nice about Idaho, and is that it's a good system. And there are some other states that have a similar structure, but it's a piece that allows something to happen before you have to file a lawsuit. So it's less expensive for the employee, it's less expensive for the employer, and it's something that's supposed to...
Kind of like a mediator without going to court yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a great setup.
But from my perspective, I'm seeing more of those not being mitigated at that level and ending up in court.
So we haven't seen a rise in what we handle, but we're very proactive. What we're seeing is that there's just too much stuff going on for employers, and they still think that they can do all this stuff themselves. You can't. It's impossible. You can't run your business and do all these things. There's just too many regulations, there's too many rules, there's too many things to do. And the employees are far more educated than they ever have been. I mean, you can Google anything you want now, so it's not like you can hope an employee just doesn't find out.
Well, you can use AI to even
and you can
generate that.
Exactly.
Back to you, it's like, hey, what should I?
So they can do it even faster.
Yeah.
And they can give them an outcome and what they, how they should, on a path to go down.
Yeah.
So it's very different now. And so if you aren't on top of it and you don't have a resource for your employees, like it's the same thing. If you're a small business and you don't have a place where an employee can go get an answer and you can satisfy them and you push them off, because I'm going to say this, I've said this before, the number one issue to an employee, and it doesn't mean that we don't care, but for business owners or managers, it's probably the 100th most important thing. But it's the most important thing to the employee.
Yeah.
And if you don't handle that or have a resource for them to get that handled right away, they're going to go figure it out, and it's probably not going to be to your advantage. And so you have to just be able to talk with them. And what we give is a resource for those employees to come and say, hey, why is this not showing right? Why is this not correct? I feel like I got this. We handle those grievances, we work them out, and we have very few that end up going further than that. But we're proactive and we're involved. And businesses just don't have the time to do that by themselves.
Yeah, that's, no, I agree, 100%. I can see that right on the wall.
The other thing that we see is, you've been in a state, whether it's Idaho or Nebraska or Texas or anywhere else, and you have an employee, you hire somebody out of another state. Same thing that happened to me 15 years ago, 16 years ago before I started this, is happening even more now. Just because you did something this way here doesn't mean you can do it that way there. That state doesn't care where you're located. It happened in their state, and that's what's becoming a bigger issue is that.
Oh, I agree.
How does anybody? There's 50 different ways to do it. I'm sorry, it's not this state. These states are similar. If you better look at each state, and I got like 3 or 4 full-time people that just watch all that stuff and make sure we know about what's happening in these states.
Yeah, right. I mean, to your point, it's always changing.
Right. I mean, the one thing that's catching most people now is leave management, because so many states have put in some kind of automatic, sick pay and sick leave, and the employer doesn't know about it, or they don't pay into it because they don't realize that these people in this state need to be paid for that, or they don't set a policy correctly, and so it doesn't apply where it should. I mean, that is, if you want a very simple mitigation, if you don't have somebody you're working with or somebody that handles your handbook needs to be state specific. You can't have one handbook for your entire company. You better have a handbook that looks at all the policies for how they apply to each state. We break every state out separately. I think I got one client that's probably got 26 different handbooks for states, and we make sure their policies apply to the correct state
That's what
requirement.
insurance companies do too, right? When they issue policies, they can't just, every state's going to be required on the policies, how they read, and
And that's what handbooks have gotten to. Handbooks are not something to be ignored at all, because it's your Bible. It's what's going to say what's going to happen.
It's going to be the thing that's either going to burn you or save you.
Correct.
And if it really went bad, right? In a court case, and because documents, one word against another person's word, one thing. What did the document? Yeah.
Yep.
And that will be.
Did you have somebody acknowledge it? Did you make a change and make sure they acknowledged it? Did they have the opportunity to see it? I mean, all those different things are all the things that we're making sure are happening. It's just, it's becoming harder and harder to just run the business that way without getting into trouble or having an issue you've got to deal with that costs you a lot of money.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things that, I've just personally, not personally, but dealing with clients over the years, it's been this term hostile work environment.
Yeah.
That thing has been thrown around a lot. And it's, I've seen it cost employers a lot of money.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And again, what was hazing, or what was maybe, part of your culture even, you can make an argument to, right?
Yeah.
Can be perceived as
discrimination
and hostile.
Or hostile, yeah.
Yeah. Like, hey, we tease a lot. Well, I shouldn't say the wrong person. It's just for certain personalities, that's not okay anymore.
No.
Maybe it never should have been okay. Who knows? But all that's changing, and it's one of the things that we've seen. And I can tell you right now, looking back at my when I was selling traditional insurances and employer liability practices, and of course through 831Bs now we're handling a lot of those exposures, unfortunately. It's crazy, and one of the things that we did not, until I experienced that with a business owner, it was a ton of business interruption.
Oh.
Which
you
don't really think about. You think, okay, I got to hire an attorney now. I'm being sued for. And it was a hostile work environment.
Mm-hmm.
It was a person that was made. They had had a seizure in the warehouse. Came back, and was constantly being ridiculed
for having a seizure
because everybody saw him have the seizure. And he laughed it off, but it got to the point where it became a hostile work environment for him. But the owner of the business was mortified by it. Didn't have a clue that it happened.
Right, especially in most businesses. If they got a warehouse and they're sizable, that stuff's going to happen and you have no idea.
Yeah, and just really felt bad about it. But the biggest thing is it took him down from a mental stability because he thought he was a better employer than this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the fact that he got somebody that to the point where they filed a human with the human commit that there's
Human Rights
also
Commission?
But it was really, so it took him for him personally out for several months, just from his own personal level.
And
which
being
was
able to focus on the business. Yeah.
It's pretty interesting, and he saw his business slip.
So did he make a claim?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. In fact, he had $50,000 in coverage. So these guys had a really. So when you talk about employer liability practices, when HR does go to and you get this thing going on, they'll have a sublimit on those things that are so low that if you don't have a standalone policy, and you're a big enough company, there's
not even close.
It's a pittance of what you need. Right. I mean, legal will eat all that up.
Oh, I have not seen a standard general commercial insurance policy that EPLI coverage that's the sub coverage is even worth. Like, you really don't pay that much more for it. It's kind of throw in so that they can say that you got coverage.
Package policy.
But you don't. If you're going to try to rely on that, you're going to be in trouble. You need to have something standalone, which is an interesting thing because it's becoming like cyber. Like you and I have talked about before, cyber insurance is getting very, very expensive.
A ton of exclusions.
Everything. EPLI is starting to become more and more expensive as well. So that's one of those things that I look at as we're trying to bring resources for mitigating risk to our clients for things that we can't control because I can't protect them from everything. They're going to do something without my knowledge that I wouldn't have the ability to protect them from on EPLI or something else. So they need to have their own coverage. But it's, as I said, it's more expensive. So how does an 831B help a company like that? Can you put together an EPLI coverage, which by the way would have no deductible, correct? Because most of these anymore, if you can get less than a $25,000 deductible,
I know.
You're lucky.
Well, and quite honestly too, Steve, what's frustrating to me is it's like professional liability insurance. It becomes a math problem for insurance companies.
Right.
Meaning, do they fight it or can they settle it? Right? Oh yeah. And they don't really care about your reputation as the company.
No.
Are you as the employer thinking, hey, I've done everything right here. I've got a disgruntled employee. He didn't like getting fired for whatever reason, but we've done everything right. And now this is coming down to a math problem for the insurance company.
Yeah. What's cheaper, give them money or pay an attorney? It drives me crazy.
Yeah. Meanwhile, and honestly, as the company that bought that policy, you transferred the risk of that policy, and you transferred the ultimate decision. The insurance company gets. You have no say. You have no say. So one of the things that we're seeing is, a couple things. When we see a client go through that, and they like, hey, we were right. The insurance company still settled. Mm-hmm. They're saying, you know what? Forget that. I want this on my side of the ledger. Right. And then it just comes down to, do you want to use pre-tax dollars or after-tax dollars? Yeah. Right. How do you want to fund this? You want to use pre-tax dollars? Then you got to use administration like us, an 831B administrator. That's what we're doing there.
Sure.
And then, but we've also added endorsements on there to cover business interruption because EPLIs don't. Employer liability practices covers the liability portion, right? But it doesn't cover the disruption that's happening at your business at the same time.
So you can combine those together into one 831B policy, self-insured policy, and you can say these are the things that I want for it.
Yeah. We'll do a full-on underwriting of the client. Unfortunately, finding risks today that clients are self-insuring for is not a problem. Yeah. It's getting, the insurance industry, and you and I have been in insurance for a long time, and you can only charge so much.
Correct.
To the consumer says, no more, right?
Yep.
So if you can't charge more for the coverages, you start to limit them or exclude them. And that's really what we're starting to see today. And then also too, you got business owners that are savvy, they understand the market. They're like, hey, if I even turn a claim in right now,
You get non-renewed.
yeah, and then I lose my contracts because I got to have all these coverages in order to even get on job sites. Or if I have a major company I'm working with, they tell me what insurances I have to have. You know, you don't make that. If you want to do business with them, here's the rules you got to play by, right?
Yeah.
So it's all of those things you put at risk. Where, again, it's like, yeah, I mean, so yeah, to your point about what we're doing mutually kind of fits in with the. Because the world is getting really, really complicated right now.
It is.
When it comes to
Is it possible to use, you've got a great policy, you've got an standalone insurance policy, and then you've got all these exclusions. Can you put an 831B in place to handle the exclusions and still have the policy?
Oh, yeah.
You can.
Yeah, always.
So they can work in concert with each other.
Yeah, and they really should, because, we call it an unfunded liability.
Right.
Right? And then it comes down to risk financing after that. And risk financing with pre-tax dollars or after-tax. The worry, the danger about after-tax dollars is this cash flow of the business.
Right.
So if cash flow is constrained, you're on budget restrictions, something didn't happen, got delayed of a project, whatever, cash flow starts to contract, and now you got these unexpected expenses coming in. It's very similar to what happened with COVID, unfortunately. I say it all the time. I mean, this should be the PPP plan going forward for business owners. That they should start to put away tax deferred dollars to handle those risks that they can't either transfer risk through normal channels, paying a premium, getting a policy.
Yep.
They can't do that, or they have exclusions in there, and they're worried about the exclusions more so than the policy, which a lot of times they are. Then they should absolutely look at an 831B.
Yeah.
So
Could they put an 831B together for a combined deductible pool?
yes.
For all the different deductibles that they have, and they could hit that for any deductible that comes up?
We work with a lot of clients, and one of the things you and I are working on is the self-insured health insurance plans.
Right.
Where, you get your expected losses and you've got your corridor. We'll fund for the corridor. Because one of the reasons why business owners don't like self-insured healthcare plans, for example, is when they, hey, well, I'm told every 5 years I'm going to hit that.
Right.
Well, if I hit it in the first year, I'm not happy.
It's not the fifth year all the time.
Not the fifth year, it's right. So they don't have realized savings in there, right?
Yeah.
Or let's say they're below expected losses. Now they can take that money and pump it into an 831B, still take the deduction for that year, but now they're building a self-deferred tax bill, basically. They would have just paid taxes on it. Now they're deferring that into this plan. So when they do hit in the corridor, they're putting a claim against those dollars of previous year's profit.
Right.
And we tell clients all the time, and I think you got to maximize the profits in years that you have them, because there'll be years you're not. If you've been in business long enough, you just hope you don't have multiple years that you're not profitable, right? You can you survive one or two, but it's when you get to that 3 or 4 you can get pretty nervous. And bottom line is you're just putting the business at risk.
Oh, completely. And I'm watching the insurance market, the health insurance side. It's changing so much that I think that companies are going to have to start finding alternative things, and that's what we're really putting together is a lot of different alternative methods away from regular insurance companies, but they also have to be something that's going to be compliant, because you still have all the compliance. I don't think that's going to go away.
No, it's going to get more. It's going to get worse before it gets better.
We don't. So we've just had the election. Different administration coming in, completely different philosophy, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with DOGE and those things that they're talking about, because I've never seen a regulation go away. They may not police it as hard, and they may not do, restrict it as much, but it really doesn't go away. They're not going to pull them off.
No.
So
and
you still have to comply by all these things.
And there's reasons. I would like to think there's reasons why we're there. The question is does the reason exist anymore? That would be protection of employees, all the things that's gone on that side has been good. Has it been overreach? Probably, more likely. States love to regulate. I personally would not have an employee in California, for example. There's no way.
We have lots that we take care of, and that is probably what we spend, number one state we spend time on, that New York.
Yeah.
You got Colorado starting to come in really high on that one too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and kind of makes sense, I guess, in some ways. But yeah, so those are things that I think for both of us, we've got a bright future ahead of ourselves because of those risks, because of the risks business owners have just naturally.
Yep.
And the complications of running business today.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and unfortunately, and I've been saying this for a while, we're not making more risk takers. I hate the fact that people, when they get out of college, I hear somebody say, "Oh, I'm looking for a great job. I'm looking for," I'm like, "Well, come on, man.
Yeah.
What about looking at business? What about owning a business? Those are the people we need to really protect the best we can, because honestly, they're the ones taking the risks. They're the ones, and they're, like I said, we're not making more of them.
No.
And so, platforms like this to get word out, just to be an education on the PO. If somebody wants to talk to you, Steve, about hey, I want to learn more about what you do and how you're doing it, and the other, I know you provide a lot of other services on top.
Yeah, we're not just a PEO.
Yeah.
One of the things that we did is that as we were looking and working with lots of different businesses, and we were talking to other businesses, and they're like, "Hey, that just doesn't fit us." There's we have a lot of expertise. What can we do, and how can we build something that allows us to work with anybody? And so we've been able now to put things in place that allow us to we can do HR consulting for somebody if that's just what they need. If they just need payroll and benefits management. Here's an interesting thing when it comes to benefits. Benefits are expensive, but the cost of the benefit isn't actually what really causes the most problems for businesses, because they'll budget for those things. What gets them is the fact they don't manage them well. And so either the employees don't get the utilization that you really want.
Perceived value is not
correct,
there.
because they don't know about it. If they don't know about it, which they're going to have to learn at the time you onboard, going back to our previous conversation, if you don't give somebody good information about it or have a good resource for them to do it, they're not going to do it. And most of the time, still, the person getting the benefit, if they're married, is not the one that handles the benefit. So do you have a resource for the spouse or the partner to go talk to? We have that. They can call us. We encourage that to be the case. So we want to make sure that they're getting all the information. But if you don't manage the benefit right, and you don't then manage the back end of the benefit correctly, it's going to cost you a lot of money. I had one company we brought on, and I saved them $40,000 a year, and they were only about 50 people. Mainly just by making sure we managed the benefit, took people off when they were supposed to be off, made the changes when they were supposed to be off, reconciled the bill, and do all those things.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I went back 2 or 3 years, and they were having the same problem because their broker wasn't getting a new census, and they were just renewing off of who was on the policy already. And then all the terminations weren't coming on there, and the people weren't getting insurance. And so, here's one of the things that most employers don't know. And I would guess you do. If you put a benefit plan together, mainly an ERISA plan, so health and then some dental fall into that. But if you put a health plan together and you don't put somebody on, you wanted a horror story, I can give you one. If you don't put somebody on benefits when they're eligible, you as the employer are liable for anything that they have come up until you can get them on benefits, which a lot of times can be open enrollment the next year. So there was a situation that, luckily it wasn't one of our clients, but it did happen regionally here, where an employee got the email from their HR department and responded back and said, "I would like the coverage." They responded and said, "We'll add you," and then whatever happened, and they didn't get them added. It wasn't the employee's fault. The employee said, "I want this." And so they go on their merry way, and about a month later, diagnosed with cancer. Wasn't on the policy. By the time that the employer was done with that, because they had to sue in order to get the coverage, because they said, "Sorry, you don't have any coverage," he was able to prove he wanted it and accepted it and didn't get on. It was about $850,000 that employer paid for all his medical, because you offered something and you didn't follow through.
Yeah. You employer liability benefits coverages on that?
And then most people don't have those.
I know.
Right.
I know.
And so that's one of the things that we're making sure that people get on the policy when they're supposed to, get taken off the policy when they're supposed to, because that's the other thing. If you leave somebody on the policy, and we've seen this happen, and they terminate,
keep paying the premium.
If you keep paying the premium, they can keep using it until you stop paying the premium.
Yeah.
But you can't get the premium back after you terminated them if they've used the policy. So you've got to stay on top of this.
And if you're an owner that's running and gunning all the time,
you're never going to see it.
Yeah.
Most people
you're
don't.
not putting your eyes on it.
Right.
And if you haven't specifically given that responsibility to some, and even when you do, it's the trust and verify world.
Well, because they have 1,000 other things they're doing.
Yeah,
right? They're not
exactly.
specialized in this, and they don't know how to do it. And brokers, they do everything they can to help you, but they can't fix these. They can try to fix problems once they know about them, but they can't manage this
They're
on
not
a
being
day.
proactive about it.
And they're not.
can't.
They have
don't
no way
time
to
for
do.
it.
No.
When it comes to one of the things that's spun me up here, sitting here, is terminating. Mm-hmm. You guys have a process. I mean, it's obviously part of your employee handbook. For the employer. Let's say you guys bring somebody on that doesn't even have an employee handbook, right?
Yep.
You're going to make sure that they're going to have.
Day one, they have a handbook that is compliant federally and state.
Okay.
And then we work with them on their policies and procedures to make sure that they have that.
Mm-hmm. And then if they have a disciplinary issue, you're going to have that spelled out. And will you guys be instituting or
That is one thing that we are different than most, is we want to be involved in the termination. I always say, as soon as you know you want to fire somebody, you call us, because what we're going to do is we're going to make sure, one, do you need to put them on a PIP? Do you need to put them on something? Have you even said anything to them before? We want to make sure
you followed your procedure that you got in your
correct.
employee handbook.
Yep.
Have you done?
And if they're using us and they're working with us,
They're going
to be in compliance because they've been calling us and their managers know to talk to us, and so they've done all the things. So when they're ready to do this, we actually put all the information together. We hand it to the manager. The manager does the termination. We'll sit on the phone if it's remote. We'll go and be in person if we need to, but we're involved every step along the way. And the reason we do that is because that's what keeps problems from occurring. That's why we don't have so many, very many things go to the Human Rights Commission or anywhere else, is because we've been proactive in the entire thing. And how you act. Here's another little thing why you don't want to have somebody in California. In California, if you terminate somebody and you don't have a check to hand them, you're in trouble. Same day pay for termination. So you have to plan out a termination. You have to be proactive with that. And if you're not doing that, I believe it's triple damages is what they can claim.
Whatever the check was,
Mm-hmm.
so whatever they're due and paid
Correct.
at that time.
Yeah, so it's not a demand thing. Like in Idaho, it's a demand. If you demand your pay within, I think if you say I want my pay, it's either 48 or 72 hours is when you have to have the check. 72. But you have 10 days, which is usually going to fall in the next pay period if somebody doesn't require that. That is not the case in California and a few other states. So you have to understand the rules of that state, which is why most people just can't do this themselves. And our solution really fractionalizes the ability to make sure you're doing everything correctly without being burdened with all the work.
I know we just got a couple more minutes. Another quick question. Do you do a cost analysis?
I do.
So when you say, when you go in and say, okay, this is what it's going to cost. This is what it's costing you now. Mm-hmm. This is what it's going to cost. You use my services, but here's all the suite of services you're going to get relative to what you're.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So I can go through the way we work. It's going to be about 500 employees before it's cheaper for you to build out a department. And maybe even more than that anymore with the way wages and costs are.
Technology and everything.
I mean, look, you get a company that's got 500 to 1,000 employees and they're going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just to have an HRIS system. And then they got to have somebody on site to actually do it, because the software companies don't build it out for you.
And the resources for that are...
They're hard to find.
Yeah.
So if we're managing all that for you, I mean, it really comes down to a place where you just can't do it better than we can internally. You just can't. There is no way.
And sleep good at night.
I'd sleep good at night and not spend more money.
And make sure your employees are being treated right.
Correct.
First and foremost.
Right.
Yeah, I would say that it's one of the things that we pride ourselves here at SRA is one of the best compliments we get from business owners. Is, Van, I just sleep better at night knowing I've done your program. And I'm sure the same thing comes to you, especially if you've had a unpleasant experience.
Oh yeah.
Being, because most owners I know are very prideful of how they treat their employees.
Right.
I mean, they should be. They wouldn't be successful without it, in my opinion.
Yep.
So when something does go awry, it's been shocking to see how much of a hit that is. I think it's a personal ego hit, is what it is.
Totally.
It's like, I thought I was treated. It's like, why is this person following? Yeah, I get it.
Like, wait, I thought we did all these things to make sure this stuff doesn't happen, and all those.
And the world's complicated.
Right.
So
we always want to make sure the employees are taken care of. That's the big thing for us.
Yeah, and I love what you said.
Yeah.
For the employee, not to the employee.
Yep.
I think that's a great philosophy, and I think a lot of us should probably adopt that somewhere in our speak when we talk to employees. So, no, it's great. So, Steve, how can they get a hold of you if they want to
Sure, you can go to our website at ataraxispeo.com. It's ataraxispeo.com. There's a little connect with us on there, and you can send us something there. And I can give you my email if you want. And,
we'll throw it up on the.
Yeah, we'll throw that up in there, and then we can throw the phone number or whatever. We can get all the contact information. But happy, and again,
or you can reach out to me, and I'll hook you guys up with Steve as well.
Yeah, definitely. But we're not just. It's not just a PEO. It can be. Where I was going with that was we can just do your payroll and benefits management if you got a great HR department. If you're tired of trying to figure out how to get your HRIS system to work, we can pull one in. We can put one in place and have all the back end solutions for you. And really, I've designed this to be able to work with almost any size business to be able to solve the problems that are becoming the hardest to deal with.
And if you're an entrepreneur, you really hate this stuff. So.
Yeah, what's so funny though is that all entrepreneurs, you got two problems. One, we believe we can do anything.
Yeah.
And two, our spouses want to help us, so they become anything we can't do. So
that's so true, especially in the beginning.
Absolutely in the beginning. And so there's so many spouses we run across that they're the HR person, and when you dive into it, unless they are an HR person, they're like, I hate this. But I do it because that's how I contribute to the family and the business and that kind of thing.
I get it.
Yeah, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
We can make you have a lot more fun somewhere else.
No, so hey, thanks. I hope this has been informative for you guys. I've learned things. I love doing these things because learn more about you and your company and your passion. For what you do. And again, thanks for joining us at the Unmitigated podcast. Like I said, please reach out to us if you guys have any questions relating to PEOs or SRA or anything else. And really appreciate your guys' time. Have a great day.